joints right here, man, that you play when you feeling down on your ism, right? Play this shit right here and resuscitate your pimping and get you right back on your mission, right? For you hoes, just that shit you play when you ain't feeling like super hoe today. Play this shit right here and to spark up your hoeing and get you right back going, you dig? Dig this. Pimps for real, don't mistake it for fashion. The turf that birthed my reputation for mashing was the track with active, attractive hoes. Professional goers that attract the dough. Like magnets to metal, never settle. We scorching them fag bitches pedal for them portions. My whores win it all. Not the ones on the sideline wishing but didn't ball in the guidelines. My bitches did it all. Down 7 below in the snow for dough. Over 120 in the sun for fun. They mash for hours, hooker baths, not showers. Bright and early, down and dirty for the cash and power. They gotta get the cash, the towers, and reach it all to a pimp. In my position, I'm all but exempt. These bras not wimps, I'm like them renegade bitches. BFFs with tricks but never getting paid riches. Grenade bitches, they dynamite, blowing up on the pimpin' and missing when the time is right. But when they life gets strife, they see pimpin' shining bright, but they action is life without. Bitch, one strike you out. Can't stop, won't stop. Poppin' pimpin', nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Smashing on these bitches, nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Poppin' pimpin', nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Smashing on these bitches, nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Poppin' pimpin', nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Smashing on these bitches, nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Poppin' pimpin', nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Smashing on these bitches, nigga. See, that's the difference, nigga. The pimpin' mashing for these riches, nigga. Nothing like you master magician, niggas. Smoking mirrors with your game, hella extras to reflect the opposite appearance of a lame. Bitches coming from y'all, I can't rock with those. Tender-footed and rooted in them doctor shows. Soft shoe rituals, minute residuals. Papers on life support, your loots and critical. Something I learned about when running my earned route and working with turnouts is murdering burnouts. Cause knocking one of you niggas for a scar bitch, that's knocking one of you niggas for some garbage. I'm heartless regardless, empty with sympathy, but banked up to the max with pimpathy. No remedy for me, I'm like this. My life is vice grip, synced in permanent ink. You can't rewrite this. My blood type is P positive, beautifully deposited with a lot of it. I'm popping this shit, and when I pop it so hard I make a trapping ass bad bitch wanna hoe hard. Can't stop, won't stop. Poppin' pimpin', nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Smashing on these bitches, nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Poppin' pimpin', nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Smashing on these bitches, nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Poppin' pimpin', nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Smashing on these bitches, nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Poppin' pimpin', nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Smashing on these bitches, nigga. Come on, pimpin', man, pop that shit. Show these sucker niggas they can't stop that shit. Let these hookers know if they wanna cop that shit. Treat the bag like it's hot, bitch, and drop that shit. And to you hoes, if you ever took a loss, bitch, show these bitches how to bounce back like a boss, bitch. Let them know that the best way to floss, bitch, is reach that paper to some pimpin' hoe and toss it. Can't stop, won't stop. Poppin' pimpin', nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Smashing on these bitches, nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Poppin' pimpin', nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Smashing on these bitches, nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Poppin' pimpin', nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Smashing on these bitches, nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Poppin' pimpin', nigga, can't stop, won't stop. Smashing on these bitches, nigga. Okay. Man, y'all already know what to do, man. Wipe your feet off at the door when you step into a pimp's domain. Hit that like button, man. Hold up. Yes, indeed, man. We here to chop some good old game like we usually do around this time, you dig? And y'all already know my first order of business, man. Pimp got to hydrate this game. Got to put some love in my body. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and tapping in with a pimp, man. We gonna chop some good game, man. That's what we gonna do for sure. Yeah, man. Like nobody else can do but this game. It take the game to chop it up about this game, man. Cheers to the game. Yeah, man, like E40 say, everybody got choices, man. Everybody got choices, right? And, you know, what don't really get talked about a lot when it comes to this game is, you know, especially with the ladies in the game, right? You ladies got choices. And I'm pretty sure y'all know that. But what a lot of y'all probably don't think about is that you're going to make a choice. And when I'm talking about choices right now, I'm referring to, you know, the guys that's available to you to choose. You know, you always got choices. Now, you know, when we talk about this game, the choice that's emphasized the most is obviously naturally the pimping. But, you know, a lot of young ladies in the game don't like the idea of being down with some pimping. Don't like the idea of choosing some pimping. Right? So they might classify themselves as renegades or whatever the case may be. But what's not often said about even ladies like that is that you're still going to choose somebody. You're going to make a choice with somebody. If you don't choose a pimp, you're going to choose somebody. But if you're going to be in this game, it only makes sense to choose a pimp. So that's what we're talking about today. Let's see, man. Yeah, man, go ahead and wipe your feet off at the door, man. Stepping into a pimp's domain. But yeah, you know, you got a lot of chicks that scream about not choosing a pimp. And, you know, that, like I said, they'll classify themselves as renegades, but what they ain't going to tell you and what they probably not even consciously aware of is the fact that they going to choose somebody. So if you don't choose a pimp, and you're an active woman in this game, then who are you going to choose? Hey, man, these chicks will choose scammers. They will choose gangbangers. They will choose even tricks, somebody that they met as a client. And they try to take all these different dudes to the Build a Pimp workshop, not even understanding that that's what they're doing. You know, because whether you a renegade or you a chick in the game that want to fuck with some pimping, what you want is some type of companionship, right? You want a man that's going to accept you for who you are, renegades included, bitches that don't want to fuck with no pimping included. You want a man that's going to accept you for who you are. You want a man that's going to appreciate you and show his appreciation to you. You want a man that's going to make you feel good, because I don't give a damn what nobody say. Most women's top priority is to feel good. Most women will throw everything away for the sake of feeling good. So you definitely want a man that's going to make you feel good. And, you know, whether you're aware of the fact or not, you're going to choose somebody. You know, now, you might not want to choose a pimp. And the reason why you don't want to choose a pimp is because your outlook is just fucked up. And you might have been listening to the renegades that came before you. You listening to your mama or your sister or your cousins or whoever else, you know, is anti-pimping, you know. But, you know, these people don't really understand the game, so they not really wise individuals to listen to and take advice from, right? But, man, you're going to choose somebody. but that somebody should be some pimping. Shout out to the young ladies that appreciate pimping. Shout out to the young ladies that understand the value of a pimp. Right? See, it's a lot of value in pimping that gets imparted to whatever women is fucking with them naturally. You know, that's what the pimping do. See, when you really some pimping, you understand that, you know, you always gonna serve a purpose bigger than yourself. You know, that's what pimping is all about. You know, it's being of service. Now, of course, we consider ourselves, you know, even those of us who who shouldn't consider themselves that, but you know, pimping always consider themselves godlike and, you know, kings and, you know, royalty and things of that nature. You know, this is how most pimps would classify themselves. But nonetheless, even if you're, you know, the leader of these women and, you know, you hold yourself to a high regard, you're still of service to these women. You still providing a service to these women. And that service is leadership, guidance, companionship, and everything that come with it, right? So, you know, why should a woman choose a pimp? It seems basic for a lot of people in the game, but a lot of people don't understand. So that's why we're having this conversation. A lot of people don't understand the purpose of a woman having a pimp. A lot of people in the game that's active right now don't even understand the purpose of having a pimp. You know, because nowadays, 2026, there's so many entry points to the game that do not necessarily include a pimp. You know, through a pimp is one entry point to the game, but it's a whole lot of other different entry points to the game that don't necessarily include pimping, right? So that means it's a lot of young ladies who, you know, they might have heard of pimping, but they don't have a clue about what pimping is. And on top of them not having a clue about what pimping is, you know, they constantly hearing, you know, different conversations and, you know, seeing different things in the media and, you know, just everything, every message that's being pumped in their ear and pushed in their face is anti-pimping, right? So it's unfortunate because, you know, the young ladies to whom that applies, you know, a lot of them is going to miss their blessing because they don't understand that the type of individual that they're being discouraged to fuck with is the best thing for them, right? Because what you got to understand is these people in the media that's painting a picture of the pimping to be a monster, these people in your family that's telling you don't fuck with no pimp, other fellow renegades that's telling you don't fuck with no pimp, they're not going to provide you with what the pimping is going to provide you with. They're not going to be your guidance. They're not going to be your leader. They're not going to be your protection, your security. You know, they're not going to be there for you in them hard times when you ain't got nobody to turn to, right? Because all these people that I just named, when you go through certain things in the game, which is inevitable as a young lady in the game, them people ain't going to be there for you. You know what I mean? If you have certain types of situations with a client, them renegade bitches that tell you don't fuck with a pimp, they're not going to be there for you. Your family 9 times out of 10 ain't going to be there for you because they don't even like the fact that you in the game in the first place. And even though they don't like the fact that you in the game, you know, they still telling you don't fuck with a pimp. Last thing they want to see you do is fuck with a pimp. So even though they don't like the fact that you in the game, they're going to give you some advice about the game. Some ill advice, right? But these people ain't going to be there for you. And then they're not going to appreciate you. The only time they might appreciate you is when you could do something for them, right? Like that fellow renegade that's telling you don't fuck with a pimp. Only time she going to appreciate you is if she's in a bind and she's able to borrow some money from you or borrow some weed from you or, you know, just benefit one way or another being associated with you. Same thing with certain family members. They'll talk down on the game to you. They'll discourage you from fucking with some pimping. But when you go to jail and you need somebody to bail you out, your family 9 times out of 10 ain't going to do that because they don't agree with your lifestyle. You got some family members that will, but in most cases, from what I know, that family ain't gonna be nowhere to be found. And again, you know, they're only going to show some sort of appreciation to you when they could benefit from you. You know, when they need help with bills or, you know, help with food or anything of that nature, you know, they gonna show some appreciation then. But, you know, they're not going to provide you with what the pimping is going to provide you with. See, the beautiful thing about a 304 fucker with some pimping, the pimping is going to appreciate you as long as you down. As long as you down with the pimping and you loyal to the pimping through thick and thin, the pimping is going to reciprocate that to you. You know, through ups and downs. Not just ups, but downs as well. See, the pimping is going to appreciate you if you have a bad day. If you don't make some money and, you know, or you going through a situation, whatever the case may be, the pimping is going to appreciate you. See, you can't, you know, the pimping doesn't benefit from you financially when you go to jail, but because you down with the pimping is going to reach for you. The pimping is going to come get you out of jail because the pimping see that as, you know, my bitch is behind enemy lines right now. That's how the pimping look at it. When you go to jail, you behind enemy lines. So pimping, if he has it within his power to get you from behind enemy lines, he gonna do that. Right? The pimping is going to be able to understand where you're coming from and relate to you and appreciate you for who you are. You know, the pimping ain't gonna, when they get mad at you, call you a dirty whore. Or some shit like that the square will refer to you as when they get mad at you. You know, you got certain family members that might call you a whore or a low down dirty prostitute or some shit like that. You know, you got that boyfriend, that gangbanger or that scammer or whoever it is that you took to the Build a Pimp workshop that ain't really the pimping. You know, because when you take a motherfucker to the Build a Pimp workshop, yeah, they might be able to put certain parts on him that resemble the pimping, but what they can't put in him at the Build a Pimp workshop is a pimp's mind and a pimp's heart. They don't provide that at the Build a Pimp workshop. You know what I mean? So you could take this motherfucker to the Build a Pimp workshop. They could dress him up like a pimp. They could, you know how like, at the Build a Bear workshop, they have certain phrases that they could put inside the bear to make the bear say certain shit. You know what I mean? So the Build a Pimp workshop, they might be able to do that. You know, you can download certain data inside this square's mind where he could say certain pimp phrases. He might be able to say, hey now, say now, hey bitch, say bitch, you know what I mean? Let your next move be your best move and everything be all smooth. They might be able to download certain pimp phrases in his mind. So not only does he look like a pimp, he sound like a pimp too. But again, the Build a Pimp workshop, they can't provide him with a pimp's mind and they can't provide him with a pimp's heart, which means, you know, when you going through certain situations or you in certain dilemmas where you need some game right now, that Build a Pimp, he not going to be able to do that. That square, that scammer, that gang member, that hustler, you know, even the businessman. And we're going to get into that too. But the businessman, you know, none of them, they not going to be able to do for you what a pimp is going to be able to do for you. You know what I mean? Because a pimp is a specialist. A pimp specializes in dealing with hoes. All things to do with hoes, that's what a pimp specializes in. You know, a pimp specializes in dealing with you when you're sad, when you're depressed. Not just when you happy and you feeling good and you doing good. Anybody could, you know, deal with you during them times. You know, when you happy and you feeling good. Yeah, a square, you know, they know how to put their hand out or, you know, make sure you get to work and make sure you get back home from work and, you know, hold the money for you and all that type of shit. Yeah, anybody could do that when things are good. But when shit is bad, though, which is an inevitable part of life, no matter what, your situation is, no matter what your walk of life, everybody on planet Earth goes through shit. The richest motherfucker go through shit. The poorest motherfucker definitely go through shit. And everybody in between goes through shit, right? And you know, that much more for women, especially depending on, you know, what lifestyle you choose. You're gonna go through some shit. You know, so you want a man that's gonna know how to handle you and deal with you and provide you with the solution when you're going through shit. Only man on the planet that's gonna be able to do that for you is some pimping. Straight up. Wipe your feet off at the door, man. It's 103 of y'all in here, but only 69 done wiped the feet off at the door, man. 70 now. Come on, man. Wipe your feet off at the door when you step into a pimp's domain. Hit that like button. Yeah, man, you know, see, it's a lot of chicks blessings being blocked, man, because, you know, like, aside from just making money and being successful and all of that type of shit, hey, it's just a beautiful thing when pimping and hoeing come together. You know, when pimping and hoeing really come together, it's just a joyful thing, man. And then, you know, as far as loyalty goes, and I've said this before, man, but I don't know of any type of loyalty and love that's greater than that of between a pimp and a hoe. You know, I you know, the type of sacrifices that pimps and hoes make for each other, I don't see no other lifestyle doing that. I don't see, you know, really too many squares. It's some squares that'll do it, you know, make that degree of sacrifice for each other. But man, you got certain square women, and y'all done seen it just like I done seen it. You got certain square women that, you know, will have kids and get kicked out of their place to live, and now they sleeping in their car, they homeless or whatever the case may be, and they not finna get out there and go, you know, sell theyself to provide for their kids and get their kids out of that jam. Some women will sit there and starve with their kids, you know, fucked up. And if somebody present the opportunity to them, like, hey, you know, we could change this, turn this around real quick. You know, this is what we could do. You know, most square bitches is gonna turn that down. They're not gonna make that level of sacrifice that the 304 is gonna make. See, a real 304, I ain't talking about these sorry bitches in the game, because there's certain sorry bitches in the game that will end up in a homeless shelter and they in the game. It's certain sorry bitches in the game that will allow their kids to suffer, you know, due to bad financial circumstances, and they in the game. Right? I ain't talking about them. I'm talking about real, you know, stomp down 304s. They not gonna allow themselves to end up in that type of situation. They're gonna hold their way up out of it. You know, so that's just an example of the level of sacrifice that a 304 will make for you know, to get ahead in life. And, you know, the pimping the same way. You know, the type of sacrifices that the pimping is going to make for the 304, you know, that square man ain't going to make for you. Right? So that's why I say I don't know a greater love, and I don't know people that have more loyalty to each other and will go as to as greater lengths as, you know, the pimping and the hoeing will. Right? So, yeah, man. And then too, you know, it's just like like I said, it's just a certain type of joy, man. You know, everybody talk about the money and the materials and all that type of shit, but just enjoying each other's company. You know, when you a 304 and you got some folks that you know is holding you down, you got some folks that you know is responsible and not irresponsible. You know, you got some folks that you know is the master of himself. You know, and on top of that, he got charisma, He got sense of humor. He know how to put a smile on your face. He know how to make you feel good. You know, whatever situation you going through, he got the solution to it. You know, and he's never going to make you feel bad or less than because you in the game and you doing what you doing. In fact, you know, contrary to that, he going to make you feel like the most important woman in the world, the most powerful woman in the world, because you in the game. He's going to get you to understand that, you know, it's really an honor and a privilege to be a part of this game in a real way, not just be in the game, but be a part of the game in a real way. It's an honor and a privilege. You know, this shit ain't for the weak-hearted or the simple-minded. You know, anybody can't just be a 304. A lot of people think it's simple. A lot of people think it ain't, you know, it doesn't require much intelligence and all that type of shit. But anybody who really in the game know, hey, being a 304 is far from easy. So yeah, you know, the pimping is gonna make you feel like Wonder Woman, right? And it's beyond just the physical thing. Yeah, the physical thing might be part of it, but that's a small part of it. Yeah, we have fun with each other physically and all that, but everything else that we have going on with each other, you know, is far greater than just that physical thing. You know. But yeah, man. Y'all funny in the comments. But yeah, and then, you know, within the pimping, making a woman in the game, a 304, feel like Wonder Woman, you know, he's gonna empower her to do, you know, Wonder Woman type things. You know, see, you know, for the young ladies who done really been down with some pimping and really been mashed on in a real way, hey, y'all know what I'm talking about. You know, when the pimping is pimping at your mind and feeding your spirit, feeding your soul with this game, hey, you just feel empowered. You just feel like you can just go out there and conquer the world. And then you go out there and do amazing shit. Yeah, this is what the pimping do. See, it's more than just, you know, knowing specific game in like skill sets and, you know, being able to teach a bitch certain things. You know, that's part of it, but that's not all of it. Yeah, that's, you know, it's good to be able to teach a bitch certain things and give a bitch instructions and shit like that. But when you can make a 304 just be on fire about this game, that's something that the pimpin' could do, or that only the pimpin' can do. See, because to be honest with you, anybody can retain game and give instructions, right? A lot of people put more emphasis on game itself than the man with the game, or, you know, the guidance as well. But, you know, the game is important. It definitely is. But beyond that, the man with the game, you know, they got that spirit of pimping in him. You know, that's just something totally different. Excuse my community right now. Colombian people ride past. I don't know if he's selling fruit or bread or food or something. But yeah, man, you know, Pimpin just has a certain way about himself where he just knows how to make a 304 feel powerful, feel empowered, and then empower her to go do amazing shit in the game. It's only the Pimpin that can do that. You know, this is why, like I said, if you're going to choose somebody, you need to choose the Pimpin, because you're going to choose somebody. So it might as well be the Pimpin, because the Pimpin is going to be able to do things for you and with you that no other man is going to be able to do for you and with you. You know? So Okay, Play for Keeps T says, it all sounds good to your head getting knocked between the washer and dryer. Sorry, I've never had a pimp like you're describing. Sounds like a fictional character. Okay, Play for Keeps. You got to ask yourself though, right? Because that's one thing about life, you know, whether you in the game or you a square, whatever the case may be, right? One thing we all have in common as human beings is that at some point or another, we all gonna make bad choices as to who we put in our lives, right? But you can't allow that bad choice to be the, like that bad choice of a pimp. You can't let that one individual be the spokesperson for all pimping, right? Because let's say, hypothetically speaking, you a square and you end up marrying this dude. Y'all married, this is your husband, and your husband is beating you up and, you know, abusing you physically and mentally and verbally and all that shit, right? He's just an abusive individual, right? And then you end up divorcing this individual. Are you going to say to yourself, you know what, I'm done with husbands, or I'm done with men, I'm only going to fuck with women now? You know, you could say that, but if you're saying that because you think that all men are going to be the same as that husband, then you know that would be a foolish outlook. It would be an unwise way to look at things, right? So why? Because you know everybody is different. All men are different. You got all different kinds of men that could end up being your husband. You know, good, bad, and ugly. So on the same token, when it comes to the pimping, you have all different types of guys in the game, you know, and just because you haven't experienced what I'm describing doesn't mean that it's not real. That's just like back to you having the abusive husband. You know, you might hear somebody talking about their husband, you know, doing all these beautiful things with them and for him and all that type of shit. And you like, you know, that sound good. But, you know, my husband, you know, he was beating me up and he was knocking me, you know, kicking me while I was down. And, you know, he was never good to me. So that shit you talking about sound like a fairy tale. You see where that's going? You know, that, you know, so what I'm saying is, you know, you can't be discouraged. And then, like I was talking about a little bit yesterday, but I'll touch on again. See, this is another thing that a lot of people don't have the level of accountability to be honest with themselves about. But you have to ask yourself on the real, what type of person were you when you chose that individual? What type of woman were you? What type of 304 were you when you chose that individual that was being abusive to you? Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that it was your fault or that you deserved it. That's far from what I'm saying. Cause you know, I would never say no shit like that. But what I'm saying is, you know, when we're not at our best as people, as human beings, this is what allows us to make bad choices in people, right? Me, myself, when I wasn't at my best, I've allowed certain women in my life who didn't have no business in my life, you know? So, you know, I done had 304s do me dirty. And see, this is going to show you the difference in people, right? Now you have certain pimps that early in the game, they got done dirty by a 304, right? So now they got this outlook like, man, fuck all these bitches, man. I'm just about to use these bitches. I'm going to run them through the mud. I'm not going to be good to none of these 304s. I'm going to get their money and I'm going to just run them through the mud. I ain't going to show them no appreciation. I'm not going to treat them good. I just want their money. You got certain dudes in the game like that, right? And on the same token, you have people like myself who can be honest, right? Like I've had certain bitches do some of the foulest shit to me. But I look at myself and I ask myself, like, what was going on with me that I allowed this woman in my life? You know, what type of man was I allowing this kind of woman in my life? You know, was I at my best? And the answer for me has always been no. Right? So on that same token, you just got to be honest with yourself as a grown woman and say to yourself like, damn, what was going on with me where I allowed myself to choose this man, where I put myself in this man's life? Where was my mind at? You know, how did I feel about myself? Where was my self-esteem at? Did I even have any self-esteem? You know, like it could be anything. It might be some trauma that you dealt with or didn't deal with, some trauma that you went through but didn't deal with and find a solution to, that, you know, as a result of that trauma, you don't see yourself the way that you're supposed to, and you don't value yourself the way that you're supposed to. Therefore, you make poor choices in the people that you allow in your life. It could be that, you know, it could be a number of things. But my bottom line point is that 9 times out of 10, when you chose that man, you weren't at your best, you know. And see, when you grow as a human being, because that's what I'm about. That's why I'm able to look at things the way I look at it. And like the future women that come into my life, I don't allow the past fucked up women to determine how I treat the women in my future, right? My past experiences with fucked up women, I don't allow that to determine how I treat the women in the future and how I deal with the women in my future, right? So, you know, you got to be able to do the same thing. You know, you got to look at yourself honestly and be like, you know, where was I at? But back to the growth thing, you know, when you're growing, when you're growing, in your case as a woman, you know, as you grow, your appreciation for yourself should grow with that as well. And as all of that grows, your outlook on things should evolve, because as you grow, you start to become more concerned with yourself because you value yourself more, and therefore you're going to make better decisions. Like I talked about yesterday, you know, when your level of concern for yourself is lower, you know, that's what allows you to make poor decisions. But when your level of concern for yourself is higher, you're more intentional about the people that you put in your life and the company that you keep. Right? So I don't want you to think that like every pimp is going to be like that, you know, and it ain't, you know, that's one thing I know for sure that I could be real about. Like, it ain't a whole lot of good, you know, pimping out there. It ain't a whole lot of good men in the game out there. But on that same token, you know, you should be working to develop yourself into a woman that there's not very many of out there as well. Right? You know, look at it like Rolls Royce vehicles and Rolls Royce owners. You know, there's not a whole bunch of Rolls Royces on the highway in comparison to other vehicles. It's a whole lot more Toyotas and Hondas and Chevys on the highway than there are Rolls Royces, right? So Rolls Royces are a rarity on the highway. On the same token, you know, the type of people that own Rolls Royces are a rarity in the types of people. So, you know, if I want to be a Rolls Royce owner, then, you know, I'm going to develop myself a certain type of way to be that type of person so that I can own a Rolls Royce. On the same token, if you want the type of pimp out there that is rare, that there's not very many of, then, you know, you should be thinking to develop yourself into the woman that there's not very many of. Right? And you got to be honest with yourself to develop yourself into that point. You know, you got to really look at yourself and be like, damn, how easy is it to be me? You know, because a rare pimp, the type of man that I'm describing, is not easy to be. Who I am is not easy to be. It ain't easy to be me. And I'm not just saying that because it's me, but when I think about my day to day, when I think about what it took for me to become who I am right now, and, you know, where I'm going, and, you know, how I see life, and just everything, it is not easy to be who I am. Most of these niggas out here, it's easy as a motherfucker to be them. On the same token, most of these bitches out here, it's easy as a motherfucker to be them. But you got to ask yourself, how easy is it to be me? You know, is it easy to, live day to day the way that I live? Is it easy to have the mindset that I have? Is it easy to have the body that I have? Is it easy to have the spirit that I have, the soul that I have? You got to be real with yourself and ask yourself these types of questions. And to be honest with you, a lot of people don't know how to be real with themselves in that type of way. Because when they start being real with themselves and they start to see a little bit of glimpse of who they really are, most people going to turn around and run the opposite direction. When you start seeing certain aspects of yourself that you don't like that's kind of ugly, most people going to be like, man, I ain't fucking with that. I don't even want to deal with that. That's too much to deal with right now. I don't like that, man. I don't even want to. Hell no. But when you that type of person, it's like, damn, this is really who I am. Okay, I got to go to work because I don't like this part of myself. And, I could turn around and run away from it, but it's going to be right on my tail. It's going to be like my shadow. It ain't going nowhere. So, me turning and running from this is not the solution. I got to turn around and face this and deal with this and conquer this. Right? So that this isn't who I am anymore. I know that I have the potential to be better than this. Right? So when you get all into that mindset and you're working towards that and your behavior is a reflection of that mindset, it's I don't want to necessarily say the law of attraction, because a lot of people wear that out and use that shit out of context. But, when you develop yourself a certain type of way, naturally you're just going to attract who you're supposed to be with. And the people that you're not supposed to be with, you're going to be able to easily see them and be like, hell no. When you develop yourself into a certain type of woman, that dude that you chose that was, abusing you and shit like that, that same type of man is not even going to have action because you learned from that. You grew from that. You became better from that. And if you think that the only thing for you in this game is that type of man, then you got to look at yourself. Are you that same type of woman that chose that man? Because what you want to be is somebody that's great, like this so great of a woman that type of man ain't even on the radar, don't even have no type of action at you. Like what? I done worked on myself and developed myself and built myself so much, a nigga like that could never have action at me. This is how you need to be thinking. But my guess is that you don't think that way because the type of person that I'm describing, you think is like some fairy tale shit. Right? So, like I said, you just gotta be 100 with yourself. And it ain't easy to be 100 with yourself, especially as a woman, because as a woman, it's easy to get overwhelmed by your emotions. Right? But you got to bite down. That's if you want to be better and want better out the game. You got to bite down. You know what I mean? See, and that's the thing too, like, as you grow and evolve, your interests become different. The things that interest you become different. And when the things that interest you become different, the things that you do, the places that you frequent, the people that you're around, all of that shit starts to change too. Right? So, ask yourself that, like the places that you would hang out, the things that interest you, the types of food that you ate, the places that you would go, the places that you would shop, just everything that interested you at the time when you chose that man. Do those same things interest you now? Right? Just to give you an idea, when I first got in the game, yeah, Freeze used to eat McDonald's. Freeze used to, eat ice cream and cheese and drink milk and all that type of shit. Right? But I've grown and evolved so much that, those types of things, and I'm just talking about food. That's just one aspect, but, I could talk about every other aspect as well. But just speaking about food, because that's something that everybody can relate to, because everybody eats food every day. I've grown and evolved so much as far as what I put into my body. Those things don't interest me anymore. So I don't frequent the places that have that kind of shit. You ain't gonna catch me at McDonald's, right? So the type of bitch that goes to McDonald's that I might have met at McDonald's 20 years ago and end up knocking, I'm not going, that type of bitch, we not even gonna cross paths because I'm never going to McDonald's. You know what I mean? Same thing with alcohol. I don't drink anymore. Back in the days, yeah, I used to drink. So, I might come across a bitch that also drinks and we meet each other where people, go to get alcohol. But because I've grown and evolved out of that and I don't do that no more, I'm not meeting a bitch at the liquor store. I'm not meeting a bitch at the bar because I don't frequent those places because those things don't interest me anymore. You know what I mean? So where a bitch got better action at meeting somebody like me? At the gym. Whole Foods Market. If you want a high caliber pimp like Freeze, hey, you got to be at motherfucking EOS Fitness. You got to be at motherfucking LA Fitness. You got to be at Trader Joe's. You got to be at motherfucking Whole Foods Market. You got to be at somebody's, health food store or some shit like that. That's where you're going to find a pimp like me. You ain't going to see too many pimps in them places that I just named. But it's something to go to them places on a regular basis. I ain't the only one, like I said before. I know different pimps that do, that live a similar lifestyle to myself. But I'm just giving you an example of, somebody that's a pimp that, frequents places and does certain things that, you wouldn't expect a pimp to be into. But a pimp is definitely into those things. And this is where you might run into a pimp. So yeah, you, like I said, the bottom line is you just got to be honest with yourself and don't allow that experience to discourage you. Because it sounds like you still walking around with that shit on your back. And I don't know how long ago that shit was, but it probably was a minute ago. But whether it was a minute ago or not, the bottom line is that shit is over with now, but you still walking around with that shit on your back. And see, what you got to understand is like that type of shit is heavy. That shit weighs you down and slows you down. When you walking around with, trauma from bad experiences in your past, that shit is heavy. And what people don't talk about enough is that, you don't have to be in bondage with trauma. You don't have to be in bondage with that shit. Like I say all the time, how you see is how you gonna be. So just like you might see that shit as a weakness right now, how you see is how you gonna be. You can change your perspective and see that weakness as a strength. Something that's gonna make you stronger, something that's gonna make you better. You can see that weakness as fuel. Fuel that's gonna drive you to where you want to get to moving forward. Now it ain't no weight no more. Instead of it being on your back, it's in your gas tank now. And you using that shit as fuel. And now that it's not a weight on your back, it's not weighing you down and slowing you down. Now you're able to move more swiftly. Now you're able to move more smoothly. You dig? Like I say, how you see is how you gonna be. So you gotta let that shit go. Turn that weakness into a strength. Yeah, y'all see y'all, Sylvia and Shakaya, yeah, y'all understand, you know what I mean? Shit. You see how pimp inspire the ladies, you know what I mean? Bitch over there thinking like, damn, I need to take my ass to Trader Joe's right now. I need to go to GNC right now. My future folks might be in that motherfucker. I need to go. For real though. Yeah, so You know, like I said, it's a beautiful thing when you can be real with yourself because that's how you let shit go and move forward the way that you're supposed to. You dig? But in the meantime, man, if you have not wiped your feet off at the door when you stepped into a pimp's domain, that means more than likely you tracking some sucker dust. You know, when you out and about moving around throughout the day, you might step in anything and get any kind of residue on your feet, man. Which means, you know, y'all just tracking any kind of residue up into a pimp's domain. You know, you might have stepped in some dog shit. You might have stepped in some cat piss. You might have stepped, you might have, a sucker might have accidentally, stepped in the same path as you. Now you got some sucker dust on the bottom of your shoe. Hey, man, you could be tracking anything up into here. That's why I say you got to wipe your feet off when you step into a pimp's domain. Hit that like button. That thing that look like that. It ain't hard. It don't cost you nothing. It don't cost you no energy. It don't cost you no money. All it's just it's over with. You know, you don't even have to interrupt this game. All you got to do is, step out the chat, hit that like button. The game is continuing throughout the whole time. And, now you done wiped your feet off at the door. Now you can receive this game, with purity, unadulterated game, unfiltered game, raw, uncut game. You dig? And then, purify yourself even further by putting this love shit right here. This shit right here. You see that shit right there? Right there? It's that love shit, man. This shit right here is going to love you even when you don't love it. That's all this shit know how to do to your body is love it. How could you resist something? How could you deny something? Deny yourself of something that the only thing it knows how to do to you is love you. This shit right here, that's the only thing it know how to do is love you. It's like a puppy or a baby. Puppies and babies, that's all they know how to do is love you. This shit right here ain't no different. You dig? At least you know. If you ain't got a puppy to love on you, if you ain't got a baby to love on you, you got this shit right here to love on you whenever you want. You know what I mean? You might not have a baby, you might not have a puppy, but you can get a hold of this shit anytime you want. And this shit don't shit and piss like puppies and babies. You know what I mean? This shit is low maintenance. You ain't got to put no diapers on this motherfucker. You ain't got to do none of that. All you got to do is drink this shit, and it's going to love you. Come on, man. Tripping. Brother Bill, good looking with the $2 holla. Glory to God for this game. Long live Philip Brandon Gilmore. Healthy living. I heard the hell out of that. You dig? Let me get this shit together one time. Ray Gunn, good looking with the $2 holla. Blessings to the chat and Freeze 100. Appreciate you, man. Oh shit, hold up. eBooks, good looking with the $2 holla. Are Max good substitutes though? Hold on, I'll get into that in just a minute. eBooks, again, good looking with the $5 holla. Is there any benefits to a gorilla pee? Is aggression in general, even if it's bluffing, a good tool in life? Or is being easygoing more efficient? That's a good question too. We're going to get to that in just a second. Hold on. Lojo, good looking with the $5 holla. Can you talk about sacrifices and fulfilled promises that peas for their game and their families and still get betrayed or done foul? That's a good one too. Okay, y'all coming with it. Mike Lowry, good looking with the $10 holla. Mike Lowry. even though it's Mike Larry, but you know, we're gonna say Mike Lowry. Okay, so to eBook's first question, are Macs good substitutes though? See, you know, when you say Mac, I'm thinking you talking about the type of individual that's gonna get it, you know, by hook or by crook himself, or he's gonna do, you know, a number of different things. You know, you talking about a Mac that's like a jack of all trades. And as we know, a jack of all trades is a master of none. You know, and the pimping is a master by trade in dealing with 304s. See, a pimp ain't gonna do all the different shit that a Mac is gonna do. You know, a pimp is a specialist that specializes in being an asset to a young lady in the game. A Mac don't necessarily specialize in that like the pimping will. You know, so with that being said, you know, you kind of can and then you use the term substitute. Substitute, is a Mac a good substitute? You know, when is a substitute ever, you know, equivalent to or better than the original? You know, you could think about it like a class, right? You know, the pimping is like a teacher that this student is accustomed to. This student might have been, you know, with this teacher in this teacher's class for months, a year, however long, right? And then when a substitute teacher, in this case a Mac, comes in and, you know, he's not specialized and certified in dealing with these students in this subject in this classroom. He's just coming in as, you know, sit in for a spell as a substitute. You know, he's not gonna be able to be an asset to these students like the original teacher, the pimping will. You did. So yeah. Now, is there any benefits to a gorilla P? Is aggression in general, even if it's bluffing, a good tool in life? Or is being easygoing more efficient? See, you know, now when you say a gorilla P, right, that's somebody who, a gorilla is somebody who 9 times out of 10 is going to be getting a point across with aggression, right? And, you know, there's a time and a place for everything, but, you know, and you might get a little mileage out of being, you know, strictly aggressive all the time. But one, you know, eventually that's going to come to an end just like anything else. And then two, you know, that aggression can push people to do drastic things that can be to your detriment as an aggressive individual. You know, like I talked about fear the other day. You know, that's not a good thing to base your program on as somebody in this game. Now, on the same token, you know, you say easy going. Nah. As the pimping, you don't want to be easy going because you're going to end up being a doormat to a bitch. She going to be, you know, wiping her feet off on your sucker ass when she step into, you know, a sucker's domain. If you too easy going, you know what I mean? She going to be wiping her feet off on a simp, you know, when she step into a simp's domain. And you don't want to be like that, you know, that you know, like they say, nice guys finish last. That shit could not be any realer than it is in the game. When it comes to this game, yeah, a nice guy gonna finish last like a motherfucker. And when he finish last, he ain't gonna have nothing to show for that shit. He gonna be milked and you know, empty-handed and some more shit. So nah, you don't want to be easy going, you know, because see that this is all the more reason why I say it's just beautiful when a 304 is fucking with a pimp, because a pimp is going to be able to keep her in line, keep her in check, and not even necessarily with aggression, but just, just being a gamed up, wise individual, and having some pimping with them. See, it's inevitable for women to, take advantage of weak individuals, for one, and then two, to just try you one way or another. Right? See, when you too easy going, you gonna provoke a bitch to try you quicker and more frequently than normal. But even when you ain't easy going, even if you's a gorilla, a bitch still gonna try you. It's just in her nature, especially a 304. She out here going out here, conquering tricks on a daily and nightly basis, having her way with tricks on a daily and nightly basis. So, it's just in her nature to come try that on you at some point in time, sooner or later. She gonna try you. That's just the way they wired. That's just the way they built. It's like a vampire in need of blood. Bitches need to try they man, whoever they fucking with. That's just who they are, right? Now, if you's an easygoing motherfucker, you're not going to stand and deliver in the way that you need to if you's an easygoing motherfucker when this bitch try you, and you got an easygoing response. She just gonna keep going. She gonna steamroll your ass, so nah, you don't want to be easy going, man. You definitely don't want to be easy going. E-books, good looking with the $2 holla. Hold up. Guys like Virgil. See, okay, now let's talk about that right now. First of all, Virgil himself considers him a Mac. He considers himself a Mac, right? But the type of Mac that I described is not what Virgil would consider himself. Virgil's idea of a Mac is someone who, who has went from a player to a pimp to a Mac. The Mac is the upper echelon of the game. That's how Virgil sees it, right? So when we talking about Macs, Virgil wouldn't consider himself to be that type of individual, right? So there's that. Now, like any other notable figure in the game, you have a lot of people that speak down on Virgil. But see, this is what I go off of, right? You got all these people that'll say all these different things about somebody, just like me. You got a bunch of people that'll say a bunch of shit about me. But what's best to go off of is the people that really know the individual and the stories that they tell, right? And the people who really know Virgil, his contemporaries, the people that come from his era, who really know him, when you hear certain stories about Virgil back in the day, man, from people that really was out there rubbing elbows with him, that really know him, it's kind of hard to look at him as anything other than some game. You got a lot of other people that'll say different things about Virgil, but as I really think about it, those people probably don't really know Virgil like that. They probably done met him and, rubbed elbows and passing and shit like that, but didn't really fuck with him like that. And then this is what you got to think about too. Now, I don't know if a lot of y'all really know, and he don't really look it, but Virgil's about 80 years old. If he's not 80, he's approaching 80 very soon. But Virgil don't look 80 years old because he takes care of himself a certain type of way. Virgil still be in the gym working out. Virgil, to be his age, he's in much better shape, I'm sure, than the average 80-year-old man. And so I say all of that to say, in today's times, you're not going to really find a lot of his contemporaries that have really fucked with him that can give you their testimony about who he is. So with that being said, a lot of the people that you hear things about Virgil from ain't really been down with Virgil. Don't really know Virgil like that. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, rest in peace to my partner who was like my uncle in the game, man, Pepe Le Pew. Pepe Le Pew and Virgil was real tight with each other. They was thick as thieves, man. And one thing about Pepe Le Pew, man, if you do anything contrary to the game, man, Pepe Le Pew is gonna bite your motherfucking head off, man. So that in and of itself says a lot to me. When I would see how tight Virgil and Pepe Le Pew was, how the way they fucked with each other, they was really like brothers, man. And just for Virgil to be able to deal with a Pepe Le Pew like that, and Pep ain't gonna spare nobody. So for Pep to have the level of respect and honor that he had for Virgil, man, that, like I said, that in and of itself says a whole lot. Cause Pep ain't gonna fuck with no suckers. Pep ain't gonna spare nobody. If you do anything contrary to the game, he chopping you up. He putting that Gensu on you for real. So yeah, man, me myself, I got a lot of love and admiration for Virgil, man, and respect for Virgil. Because I've seen what type of man he is. You know what I mean? So I've seen firsthand what type of man he is. Like, the type of shit that people on the internet ain't gonna see, because you're only seeing, a small degree of who somebody is when you're looking at them on the internet. It's a lot different when you up close and personal dealing with somebody and you see what type of man they are for real. Yeah, it's just different. So yeah, I got the utmost respect for Virgil. Shout out to Virgil. Mike Lowry, good looking with the $10 holler. Love, we got to pronounce it the ignorant way. Yeah, for sure. You already know that. You know what I mean? Hell yeah. Sucker repellent. As always, good looking with the $10 holler. Blessings to all the game. I'm over here on my Stairmaster 22 minutes in, enjoying this game. Blessings and happy Friday to everyone in the chat, especially the ladies. Long live Sinful to P. Yes, indeed, man. Yeah, that Stairmaster ain't no joke, man. He 22 minutes in. See, if you ain't ever fuck with that Stairmaster, hey, 22 minutes ain't no joke. You got to be in some hell of a shape to do that. Hey, but you know what? Speaking of cardio, sucker repellent, hey, man, the other day I did something on the treadmill that I ain't did in a long time, man. And it wasn't really nothing like crazy, but I did it with such ease. I know I could have went way longer, but I was on the treadmill the other day and I did 12 minutes at 6 miles per hour. And that I did that shit with ease. And to be honest with you, the main reason why I stopped is because the knee brace that I was wearing, I had it a little bit too tight. So it was like uncomfortable. That shit felt like it was cutting off my circulation and shit like that. So I had to stop really to adjust my knee brace because I had put it on too tight. But I ain't did that in years. And I kind of surprised myself. I was like, damn, I'm in pretty good shape right now. Like, shit, 6 miles per hour for 12 minutes straight. And when I was done, I wasn't even like winded or tired or nothing like that. Like, I'm in pretty good shape, man. But see, being out here in this motherfucking Columbia, man, you know, it's hills everywhere. And, you know, like I told y'all before, man, I walk everywhere, man. I ain't drove a car since 2025. I ain't even drove a car in 2026, man, because I ain't been to America since 2025. So, you know, just out here, you know, Ubers are so cheap. You know, for somebody that's traveling out here, man, it really don't even make sense to get a car, like a rental or anything like that. You know, for certain situations, you might want to get a rental for like a day or two, or maybe rent a moto or something like that. But I say all that to say I walk a lot, and I walk up and down these hills all the motherfucking time. So that shit done got me in hell of a shape. I was kind of shocked myself the way I killed that treadmill the way I did. It made me want to go again. Like, one of these days in the near future, I'm going to hit that treadmill again just to see how long I could go at 6 miles per hour. Because I told y'all the other day, I was telling y'all when we was celebrating and honoring Sinful to P, I was telling y'all about how when me and Sinful was in Minnesota, he was fresh out of prison. Sinful was like, he was smaller than what I am right now. Y'all think I'm small. Sinful was even smaller than what I am right now. He was slim as a motherfucker. He was in tip-top shape, fit as hell. And me and him had got on a treadmill side by side in Minnesota at the Hyatt, downtown Minneapolis, and we ran an hour straight at 6 miles per hour. So basically we ran 6 miles in an hour. And both of us was in good ass shape at that time. Like, I was thinking to myself, like, damn, motherfucker didn't even know how good a shape he was in back then. But yeah, the way I feel right now, shit, I probably could do that shit right now. I probably could run 6 miles in an hour. I ain't done that shit in forever, but the way I'm feeling right now, I probably could do it. Eat Books, good looking with the $5 holla. What causes more damage to game girls? Going renegade or choosing Bloods and Crips and giving the profits to the set? Well, hey, you know, that's really one and the same, man. See, I'm a little different than everybody, you know. Now, some people's definition of quote unquote folks in the game is just, you know, whoever a chick in the game hands her money to. Now she got folks. I don't subscribe to that theory. I subscribe to the theory that if you're not paying a pimp, then you're a renegade. So if you're paying Bloods and Crips and GDs and BDs and all that type of shit, you're a renegade. You still a renegade. You might be handing your money over to a gangbanger every day. You know, you might be handing your money over to a trick. You got bitches to do that. But if you're not handing it to a pimp every day, then you a renegade. So, but as far as damage to the game, you know, they really doing more damage to themselves than they are to the game as a whole. Now, you know, they do incremental damage by who they associate with and might be able to impress them their ideals upon, you know, young impressionable bitches. They do damage like that by creating other renegades out of young ladies in the game that's impressionable. But yeah, you know, renegade just bless their little hearts. You know, they as the scriptures say, forgive them for they know not what they do. You know what I mean? Me and Gardner Wallace is stupid. Jim and I recommended me to take a stroll instead of a walk. Oh shit. Y'all got Gemini. Y'all asking Gemini all these questions now after Pimpton had the little live with Gemini. We're gonna have to do that again in the near future too, because I got some ideas for that shit now. But I ain't gonna do it tonight. Right, it should be handed over to a pimp. That is the embodiment of class, as Tonito Suave says. You dig? Yes, indeed. E-books, good looking with the $5 holla. So you equate on Larry, on Tookie, and etc. to a girl going solo. Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. Because like I said at the beginning of this video, a chick is going to choose somebody. Even a renegade is going to choose somebody. Now, renegade ain't going to choose a pimp, but she's still going to choose somebody. Right? So, now you say going solo, and see, what people don't understand is that, us as human beings, we're social creatures by nature, which means that I don't give a fuck who it is. Don't nobody want to be by themselves forever. You got motherfuckers that say that shit, but that's some bullshit. No human being wants to be by themselves forever. So with that, and especially not no young renegade bitch. A young bitch in the game, she don't want to be by herself forever. She could talk that shit, but pimping know this game, pimping know bitches, and pimping just ain't going for that shit. So with that being said, she might be solo for, a time being, but that time being is going to be short-lived because she's eventually going to get with somebody. And she might not even call that somebody her folks or her boyfriend or whatever. But if she's dealing with him on a daily basis and might even start handing her money over to him, she's gonna be involved with somebody. But that somebody ain't no pimp if he putting it on Larry and on King David and all that type of shit. You know what I mean? That motherfucker there is definitely not no pimp. Nigga putting it on 6 out. That's not no pimp. You know what I mean? Shout out to all the gangbangers though, but they know they not no pimps. I like the gangbangers that keep it real though. Cause you got some gangbangers that'll keep it real. Like, look, man, I ain't no pimp, but these bitches want to pay me. And who am I to turn that shit down, cuz? Who am I to turn that shit down, Groove? Who am I to turn that shit down, Blood? You know what I mean? And I can't be mad at them. Cause it ain't their fault that the bitch want to choose them. But they keep it real though and let it be known that they not no pimp. They a gangster or a hustler or whatever the case may be. I just like the ones that keep it real. Now the gangbangers that try to act like they full-fledged stand-up, stomp down pimps, straight-laced pimps, but you really a gangbanger, those is the ones that, I can't really respect them. I can't really respect them, that you still functioning as a gangbanger and you claiming to be a pimp at the same time. No. Nah, you confused. You a double-minded man, and as the scripture says, them types of guys is unstable in all their ways. You dig? So nah. E-books, you wild. Good looking with the $2 holla. Bandana, fork, crown equals Big Lex. Nah, I ain't gonna say that because they still a man at the end of the day. You know what I mean? And a woman just can't do what a man do. People that's born with fallopian tubes and ovaries and shit like that. We can't do what they do. They can't do what we do. And anybody that's trying to be the opposite, they just confused. But, as a man, I can't do what women do. And as women, they can't do what us men do. It's just that simple. So, no, Big Lex is not equivalent to a gangbanger. No. 50. Oh shit. 50. Damn. Fuck. Dumbass shit. 50 floors up. Good looking with that $2 holla. How bad did it get with pimps gambling the money away? Oh man. You know, one story I could talk about, cause he was a candid individual, and that's one thing I loved about him is that he didn't have no shame in his game, and he was just gonna, be raw and uncut with you. But Charm, rest in peace to Charm, man. Charm that a lot of y'all know from American Pimp. Charm was telling me a story of one time where he was in the casino gambling, right? Charm was at the table for 4 days. 4 days straight gambling. You know what I mean? If he wanted food, they'll bring him food. If he need to go to the bathroom, he'll go to the bathroom and come right back. But this man was at the table gambling for 4 days straight. That's when you know you got it bad. And within them 4 days of just nonstop gambling, of course, he'll go up, he'll go down, he'll get back even, go up, go down, all that type of shit, right? But at the end of those 4 days, he lost $40,000. $40,000 motherfucking dollars. Crazy. So yeah, Charm was acting a fool at that gambling table, man. Certain other individuals who I ain't gonna name, man, I've seen a bitch hand a motherfucker, I seen a bitch, man. It's one motherfucker that I know. Actually, it's a few motherfuckers I know to whom this applies. But there's 2 particular individuals that I have in mind right now. 2 particular individuals. And these 2 individuals had bitches that was just handing over hunks and chunks. I'm talking about 10,000, 8,000, 15,000, 6,000, 11,000. Consistently. Not every single day, but consistently. Hand the motherfucker these traps like this, and then as soon as they get the money, they run into the casino and losing that shit 9 times out of 10. Sometimes they might hit, and see, people might think that, they got some type of, skill set when it come to gambling. Some people might think that they better at gambling than others and shit like that. But hey, as the old cliche goes, man, the casinos wasn't built on winners. And the motherfuckers with the casinos is balling. They balling out of control. Casinos are not built on winners. They allow people to win here and there to fuck with their psyche a certain type of way, get them to keep coming back. But it's like, let's say you hit for 50,000 today. If you're a gambler, right? You play blackjack, you play craps, or, whatever it is, that you like to gamble with. You might hit for 50,000 today, right? But if you go back every day and you lose 5,000 today, 10,000 tomorrow, 3,000 today, 2,000 the next day, and you constantly knocking down that 50,000 and you done gave it back, and then now you digging into your own pockets and giving them more money back, and every once in a while you might hit for 20,000 or 15,000 or 30,000 or whatever the case may be, and you might have some days where you hit, like days in a row. Like one of my partners, I remember one time he was gambling, and for like 3 days straight, he hit for over 10,000 every day for 3 days straight. Right? But that's just them 3 days. I've been watching this motherfucker gamble for years, and I done seen him lose so much money. Hodo. So me, I don't want to hear that shit like, some motherfuckers think they got good luck, or some motherfuckers think that they just so skilled at what they do. They got the shit down to I don't want to hear none of that shit. I done seen motherfuckers lose. I ain't seen nobody get rich off gambling. Maybe them professional poker players or something, that's probably a little different, you know what I mean? But just a motherfucker that leisurely gambles, they're not a competitive gambler, they're just a leisurely gambler. Hey, I ain't seen none of them motherfuckers get rich. I done seen them get broke. And the way I look at casinos, man, I look at casinos like brothels. And every slot machine is a 304. Every table is a 304. That's how I look at gambling. The motherfuckers ain't nothing but brothels, and every machine that you can put money into, or every table that you can put money down on, they ain't nothing but hoes. And the motherfuckers that's patronizing these hoes can't be nothing but tricks. So yeah, man, that's how I see gambling. And if more pimps looked at it that way, they probably wouldn't be gambling no more, man. If you looked at the casino as one big ass motherfucking brothel, and you looked at every table and every machine as a 304, and whenever you engage with this table or this machine, you pretty much, a trick. You know what I mean? If you really, if the spirit of pimping don't convict you, once you hear that, you just might not be a pimp, man. I don't know, man. And then, once it's broken down to you like that, it's hard. Like how they say you can't unsee it. When a picture is painted to you like that, how can you look at it any other way? That's what I would like to know. How can you see it any other way? The casino is a brothel. These machines and tables is hoes, and you a trick. How can you see it any other way, man? Like, I can't see it no other way, man. For real. E-books, good looking with the $5 holla. Now that you're in Colombia, what's your opinion on the padrotes, aka chulos, as a legitimate American Pete? Do you respect their game? Well, I don't know, because I mean, I'm sure their game ain't nothing like, the American pimping for one, but then two, I don't know any of them dudes. I hear about them, but I ain't met no Colombian what they would consider to be a pimp or anything like that. I haven't met none of them. I haven't really heard any detailed stories about any of them in particular. So I can't really speak on something that I'm not familiar with. I don't know anything about them dudes, so I can't really say. Water sign 10, good looking with the $2 holla. What do you think about, or what do you think of capitalism? Hey, that's the American way. Survival of the fittest, and I love it. You know, uh, Even at times where I done been fucked up financially, and ain't had a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. You know, uh, I love capitalist society. You know, uh, to each their own. Uh, there's communist societies that probably work for those people, but me myself, I just like having the ability to control my own fate financially. And capitalism is the American way, and you got all these. It seems as though communism is becoming more and more popular in the United States, and the way I see it is like if you have a capitalist spirit in the United States, you shouldn't even be there. You should go to a capitalist country. Take your ass to Cuba and see how they living. See how that communism shit done worked out for them. They fucked up out there in Cuba. Man, I wouldn't wish that on nobody, man. So yeah, yeah, but you know, capitalism to me that just means life is what you make it. That's how I see capitalism. And but now, you know, it's pros and cons to it, obviously. You know, corporate America is very shisty, very predatory, and all of that. You know, but like I said, it's survival of the fittest. You know, you gonna be a motherfucking gazelle or you gonna be a hunter. Me, I'm not gonna be no motherfucking gazelle. You know, hey, it's cool to the gazelles though if they want to be gazelles and shit like that. But yeah, I'm gonna be a hunter. You dig? I'm hunting. So, but yeah, man, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this thing on up. If you ain't wiped your feet off at the door when you step into a pimp's domain, please do so on your way out before you get up out of here. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this thing on up, man. As always, I appreciate y'all for tuning in and tapping in with a pimp. I appreciate you for sharing this video. I appreciate you for all your comments, questions, input, jokes, feedback, all that good stuff. I appreciate you for subscribing. I appreciate you for hitting the bell when you subscribe. I appreciate all the super chats, the cash apps, the PayPals. And speaking of cash apps, hold on. Down South Yellow, good looking with the, I don't know if that's a 3 or a 4. I'll just call it a $4 holla. You dig? Yeah, I think it's, yeah. Or no, wait. Yeah, the $4 holla. Appreciate you, man. But yeah, I appreciate your support in every which way that you comes with it, man. Y'all already know who it is and what it is. Freezes it. If you out in traffic moving around, please do so in a safe fashion. And of course, as always, long live the incomparable Sinful to P. We out. Oh shit. Damn. Damn, I'm getting ready to wrap this shit up and ebooks done hit me with another super one time for right on my way out the door. I can't leave them hanging, man. Oh shit, and I forgot Lojo's question too. All right, let me backpedal. Let me rewind a little bit, man, because I did forget Lojo's question. I sure did. My bad. Let me pump my brakes one time before we go. Okay, let me get back to Lojo's question. Okay, can you talk about the sacrifices and fulfilled promises that P's for their game and for their families and still get betrayed or done foul? Hey man, I'm glad you caught me before I got up out of here, Lojo, man, because I definitely wanted to address that and I completely forgot about it, man. But that's an excellent request right there to talk about that. Man. You know, I don't know if Sinful ever talked with y'all about this. But I'm sure he wouldn't mind me talking about it with y'all, even if he hasn't himself. So we could talk about it, man. But man, I remember Sinful had this chick, right? And you know, when they started off together, you know, it was beautiful. You know, she was taken to the game real well, and he got her out of a situation like she was a turnout, and he got her out of a situation. It was just like depressing. Like her life wasn't about shit. But, you know, she was a nice looking young lady. And, you know, she come to Sinful and she, you know, do what she have to choose them and all that, and everything was cool. And it started off beautifully. Like I said, she took to the game real well. And, you know, her lifestyle just changed drastically fucking with Sinful. You know, this is somebody that's really the game. So, you know, when she surrendered herself to him the way she did, naturally her life just, you know, amplified. So, you know, everything going real good, right? And I remember this chick, she had some kids. She had some sons. I can't remember if she had like 2 sons or 3 sons. And if anybody would remember this story if Sinful told it, I'm pretty sure Lojo, you probably would remember if Sinful talked about this shit, but I don't know if he ever did or not. But anyway, so this chick, like I said, she had like either 2 or 3 sons, like little boys. They all 2 or 3 of them, however many of them it was, they probably was under 5. They was like 5 and under. It's little boys, right? And you know, because the bitch was handling her business the way she was supposed to, you know, see, and that's one thing that don't really get mentioned much, right? See, when a bitch is handling her business, pimping is gonna treat her right, but it's not even so much about the bitch. It's just because that's who the pimping is. Like, so I say all that to say, like, Sinful was doing right by this woman and her kids, but it's not so much because of her. It's just because of that's who Sinful was. He gonna do that by default. Like, if a bitch handling her business and doing what she's supposed to do, it's just by default that she gonna reap the benefits, right? It's like it's I'm trying to think of that term. But whatever the case, you know, she just gonna be, you know, she just gonna benefit just being associated with bro, right? So I remember one time, you know, her kids was in the South with her baby daddy, you know, and Sinful was in Arizona with the bitch. And, you know, I remember times where bro would fly with her to the South on birthdays and shit like this. You know, Sinful, he you know, Sinful just over the top sometimes, man. He gonna go above and beyond. That's just who he was, you know. So birthdays and shit, they flying to Tennessee, you know, to Tennessee and shit, and man, he just going above and beyond for these little kids for their birthday. Christmas, the same thing, you know. He just doing, like, you know, beautiful things, you know, making sure these kids have, you know, a beautiful childhood and great memories and shit, right? So, Lojo, you already know, man. You didn't. So I guess Sinful done talked about this story before. So, but yeah, you know, you familiar with it already. But since we already into the story, I'm gonna continue. But, you know, but not just with her kids, but Sinful was just real good to this chick, man. He was real good to this chick, and you know, laced her, you know, empowered her to do things that she had never done in her life before. You know, was taking her around and showing her shit that she had never seen before. You know, he was just real good to this chick, man. And, you know, so I hate to even mention part of this story because it involves somebody that was associated with me. And I don't, you know, even though I ain't saying this person's name, you know, a lot of people gonna know who I'm talking about. And I don't like giving this individual no acknowledgement. But anyway, so when Sinful had this chick, right? This chick that I had at the time, her and the chick that Sinful had got real cool with each other. They used to go trap together and all that shit, right? They used to go get money together and all that shit. So they had became real cool with each other, right? So, the chick that I had, I ended up firing. Right, I fired the chick that I had. But after I fired the chick, her and the chick that Sinful had would still talk with each other. Right? And so one day, damn, as I'm telling this story, I kind of want to say I remember Sinful talking about this shit, but I'm not for sure. I don't know. But whatever the case, right? One day, this is after I done fired the bitch. Her and Sinful's bitch is out trapping together, right? And Sinful's bitch didn't really have a good night. So the bitch who I had just recently fired at the time tells Sinful's bitch, like, girl, you can't go in without a sufficient trap fucking with Sinful. That's a real pimp, girl. He gonna do this and he gonna do that. She putting all kind of ideas in the bitch that Sinful has head because, she's a little more seasoned. She been in the game longer, and so she knows more, and that empowered her to be more crafty and wicked. So she putting all this bullshit in Sinful's people's head, right? So when she goes home to Sinful, she'd have been pumped in her head with this bullshit from this bitch that I had just fired not too long before that. So now, she's starting an issue with Sinful. And so she trying to argue with Sinful. Sinful ain't gonna argue with this bitch. So, she's following him through the house. Sinful will go in one room. She'll follow him into the room trying to stir this argument up. Sinful will go to the next room in the house. The bitch follow him to that room in the house, and she just following them throughout the house on bullshit, right? So finally, Sinful goes to the bathroom, and he locks himself in the bathroom. And when he locks himself in the bathroom, the bitch is on the phone with the bitch that I just fired. And next thing you know, the police show up. And some of y'all, I know Lojo done seen it, but some of y'all done seen the video that Keisha's weird ass put out there where Sinful got arrested at his house. Police came to his house. The little bitch was talking to the police saying that he beat her up and all this shit when, none of that shit happened. This bitch pale as a motherfucker, ain't got a mark on her. So, but it was just crazy because, Sinful was so good to this bitch. And see, I know that's my bro, and he done been candid and 100 with y'all. And, I'm candid and 100 with y'all. And, we all know, as Sinful to Pete himself would tell y'all that, it's been times where he done became a hairstylist with a bitch. Right? But, I was around, we pimping side by side every day. And I know that he never became a hairstylist on this bitch. You know what I mean? Even at times where she probably asked for it and might have even deserved it. He never went there with this bitch. He never put his hands on this bitch. You know what I mean? So, if anybody would know, that anybody would be me. And then furthermore, if he was so abusive to this bitch, how she tried to make it seem, then how come when I bailed him out of jail, because he had and it's crazy, we had to bail each other out of jail. He had bailed me out of jail just some days before that. And then here it is, he go to jail, I got to bail him out. But, the bitch didn't bail him out. I bailed him out, for one. And then two, if he was so abusive, then bitch, why was you trying to come back? Why was you begging him to accept you back? But y'all know Sinful, like, it's over with. You don't even exist no more after some shit like that. So, yeah, that's an example of, where a pimp was good to a bitch, fulfilling certain things, desires for a bitch. And, in return, she just did him dirty. you know. But like I say, like I was talking about earlier when Play for Keeps was talking about her bad experience with, you know, her ex folks and how he was abusive and shit like that. Now, after that story that I just described was sinful, right? You know, a lot of dudes who've been through similar things, after being so good to somebody and that somebody just turn around and just betray you. You know, it's kind of hard for certain guys to just be good to women after that. And I understand, you know, but Sinful wasn't like that. He was still able to appreciate ladies, you know, be good to ladies, build ladies up, be an asset to them, you know, be a solution to whatever issues they had in life. Sinful was still able to do that even after that type of experience. And that's not the only fucked up experience he done had with a bitch in the game. But that was like one of them ones that was just like, wow, bitch, how could you do some shit like that? After everything he done did for you and been to you, how could you do some shit like that? But, you know, he didn't allow that to diminish who he was. You know, he was still himself, and if anything, that experience didn't do nothing but make him better and stronger. You dig? But, and then, you know, there's my own personal testimony. You know, I done told y'all about this, and not just me, but, you know, that shit was kind of all over the internet at the time. But my situation where the little broad that I had at the time, you know, boy, that shit is like me putting a dark cloud over my own head just talking about the shit. It's like, but anyway, you know, similar type situation. I had this little broad, and, you know, she came to me as a tramp, and I turned her into a champ, laced her up, gamed her and guided her up, and turned her into a money-making machine, money-making monster. You did, and was being good to this chick. She had a child at the time that was living with her grandmother in the state where she was from. And I'm making sure that this child is being provided for and all that type of shit. And you know, just being good to this chick, man. Same type of thing, you know, showing her things that she ain't never seen, giving her experiences that she's never had, and not just her, but just where she from. She come from a little bullshit ass town where the people in that town, you know, I hate to say it, but it's like it's like a drug infested town where ain't nothing going on, no opportunities, no nothing, and most of the people in that town just end up not amounting to shit. You know, I hate to say it like that, but it's just the truth, and I'm not saying it like it's their fault. It's just, you know, this is the way that town is set up. It's designed for a motherfucker to be a failure in life, right? So, and especially her, at, you know, she was young, and I know for a fact that most of the people that come from the town that she's from that are her age wasn't living and doing how she was living and doing. You know, they ain't never seen the shit that she was seeing and doing the shit that she was doing at that age, coming from where she come from, right? So, you know, being good to this chick. And, you know, like I learned so much from that experience, right? And I don't really know the details of that girl that Sinful had that bad experience with background. I don't really know her background, like her family upbringing and shit like that. But my guess is that it was probably similar to the bitch that I had the fucked up experience with. See, and I wish Sinful was here to break it down to y'all, because he would, you know, by it being him, he would be able to break it down to you better. But, you know, me speaking for myself, this chick she just came from a fucked up upbringing. You know, her father was in and out of prison throughout her whole childhood, so she didn't really grow up having a father figure like that. Her mother was on drugs. Her grandma was scandalous. You know, her whole family was just fucked up. Just, you know, cutthroat motherfuckers, you know, slitting each other's throats, stabbing each other in the back. You know, this is what she grew up into. She grew up into a family that was just fucked up. You know, like nobody had no love for each other. Nobody had no loyalty to one another. You know, nobody was trustworthy. Everybody doing each other dirty. This is the type of family that she come from, right? So, most people who come from that type of background, they can't even fathom genuine appreciation. You know, now, see, everybody is different. Like me, I come from a family where it was a lot of drug addicts and all that type of shit too, but that's not all that it was in my family, for one. And then two, even my family members that was drug addicts, they've never just been like scandalous towards each other. And I've had certain, and that's the cold part about it. As I'm talking, it's reminding me like the most scandalous motherfuckers in my family wasn't drug addicts. The drug addicts in my family was like the most solid, loyal motherfuckers, even when they was drug addicts. But the most scandalous people in my family, the shystiest motherfuckers in my family, wasn't drug addicts, right? So I say all that to say, you know, just because somebody grow up in that type of family doesn't mean that they're going to be cutthroat towards each other. But that's just how her family was. Not only did she have drug addicts in her family, but they was just some scandalous motherfuckers towards each other, right? So, you know, people who come up with that type of background, you know, 9 times out of 10, you know, when they come across somebody who comes from the opposite background of that in terms of love within your family and, you know, appreciation from your family and things like that, you know, they don't, it's unreal to them. They don't even know how to deal with that. And that's how this chick was, you know what I mean? So it was silly of me, especially once I came to understand her background, to believe that, you know, she was just gonna appreciate the type of motherfucker that I was to her. You know, and you know, do you know it's been like almost 5 years since I've dealt with that individual, and you know, they still hit me up from time to time, probably watching this shit right now. You know what I mean? Wishing that Freeze would take them back. But, you know, I'm like my brother in that regard. Like, you know, if a motherfucker put them people in my business, you don't even exist no more. There's no way possible that could ever, you know, be rekindled and revisited. We can't never go back there. You dig? So, but yeah, you know, like I said, I was real good to this chick, man. And she took it to the extreme. Like, the level of betrayal was extreme. And, you know, she sent them people to my doorstep. She put Keisha from False Alert in my business, let him know my address. He sent them people they both sent them people to my doorstep separately. Like, once she gave him my information, here he is, you know, making false claims to them people so they could come to my doorstep. And then on the other hand, here she is doing the same thing, right? So, you know, these people hit me with the double whammy on the betrayal tip. And on top of that, she got on the internet and was like slandering me and, you know, lying on me and just trying to make me look like, you know, anything other than what I am. And, you know, it was some crazy shit. But I just remember my partner, right? When the shit happened, when the bitch had sent them people to my door and I got up out of there before they was able to get there, I was able to narrowly escape that situation. And I was on the phone with my partner describing to him what happened, man. He fucked my head up in a beautiful way. And I don't even think he understood what he was doing when he did it. But I'm telling him everything that took place. And he like, bro, man, that bitch is jealous of you, bro. That's why she did all that shit, man. She jealous of you. And when he first said it, I was like confused. Like, how could a bitch be jealous of her folks? Or like, just how could a bitch be jealous of, a man that she's involved with? Like, how does that even happen? But when he said it, that was my first thought. But as I thought about it more, I was like, damn, that's all it could be. And it made me flash back to different instances, like little subtle little things that she would say and, subtle little gestures that she would make and shit like that. It really hit me like a Mack truck. Like, damn, that bitch really was jealous of me. And I done talked about that before, but I probably will do another video on that, man, about, people being jealous of who they involved with, whether it's because you got niggas like that too. You got boyfriends that's jealous of their girlfriends. You got husbands that's jealous of their wives. That shit happened. And, of course, I don't know those people, so I can't really say for sure. But last year in 2025, it was an influencer. She was real beautiful, Latina chick, and her husband killed her. And when you look at the husband and then you look at her and then you hear people's testimony that knew them, that's how I chalked that up. I was like, damn, he did all that because he was jealous of her. You know what I mean? So it ain't just one way. And then you got them type of situations too where supposed to be pimps is jealous of they 304s. Like jealousy ain't just like, something that a man has for another man or a woman has for another woman, or, opposite sex that's like associated with each other, whether they coworkers or friends or whatever, they jealous of. No, you got motherfuckers that's involved with each other, man, that be jealous. And that shit is fucking crazy. But, yeah, I learned a lot from that situation there, man. Crazy. Cray for real, man. But hold up. Eat books, good looking with the $2 holla. What's more trickish, the casino or the lean cup? I can't really say which one is like necessarily more addictive because, they're both scenarios where somebody is being mastered by something. Whether you being mastered by gambling or mastered by lean, which is liquid heroin, you still serving something that's not serving you. So yeah, that's kind of like a dice roll. Eat books, good looking again with the $2 holla. Is she the one who went to Keisha? Yeah, you already know. That's what I'm talking about. You dig? But that's the thing with me, right? Life is so beautiful, and I'm so appreciative and so blessed for all the things that I have, and just the people that I have in my life and all of that, man. Like, I'm just so blessed. Like, I can't even have no ill will towards that individual. I can't even be mad at that individual. I don't have no disdain for that individual. You dig? I don't want nothing to do with her no more. But, I don't wish nothing bad on her. And, best of blessings to her. You dig? I just don't want nothing to do with her. But, and see, that's what I'm talking about. Back to what Play for Keeps T had mentioned earlier about, the bad experience she had with her ex folks. after the shit that happened to me. And that's just one scenario that I done been through in the game. Like, I could talk about other situations. We'll be here till next week. You know what I mean? If I was to sit here and talk about all the fucked up shit that I done experienced with 304s in the game, man, we'll be here. We'll break a record for the longest live stream on YouTube, man. If I was just sitting here talking about all the fucked up shit bitches done. But I don't hold on to that shit. I don't say to myself like, oh man, this bitch, she gonna do me like that bitch did me. So man, fuck this bitch. I ain't finna do, or you know, all these bitches ain't shit. So I'm gonna get over on them before they get over on me. No, I can't. That type, again, like I said, that type of shit is heavy, man. That's too heavy for me, and I'm a strong motherfucker, but I ain't trying to carry no shit like that around all the motherfucking time, man. Burdens on my back and all that type of shit, man. That shit heavy. It slows you down and weighs you down, and I'm cool. So, yeah. Ebook says, freeze. So it was the one who went to false alert claiming Sin didn't wear pants. No, not her. Oh, you talking about the chick that Sinful had that issue with? No. I thought you was talking about with me. No, claiming Sin didn't wear pants or some shit with his suits, and he used the Bible to exploit her while Keisha laughed like a hyena. No, the scenario that I described with Sinful, that wasn't that same chick. That's a totally different chick. And when I was talking about somebody going to folks alert, I was talking about the chick that I was dealing with. The chick who was fucking with me went over there. So yeah. But we gonna do take 2 of this exit, man. You dig? I tried to skate out on y'all. I almost forgot to but I'm glad Lojo reminded me, man, because yeah, that was some good game to chop it up about. But once again, we gonna wrap this thing on up. As always, I appreciate y'all for tuning in and tapping in with a pimp. I appreciate y'all for sharing this video. I appreciate you for all your comments, questions, input, jokes, feedback, all that good stuff. I appreciate you for subscribing. I appreciate you for hitting the bell when you subscribe. I appreciate all the super chats, the cash apps, the PayPals. I appreciate your support in every which way that it comes with it, man. Y'all already know who it is and what it is. Freeze is it. The guy that know the game appointed pimp. If you out in traffic moving around, please do so in a safe fashion. And of course, as always, a sane and a safe fashion. And of course, as always, long live the incomparable Sinful to P. We out.